If you are new to this series, we have been going through every single national title claim in college football history for the FBS or highest level at the time it was claimed. At this time, we have covered all of the one-time and two-time champions and are moving on to the threes and beyond. Please go back and watch those for me after this if you enjoy this sort of thing. From here, some teams will still be lumped together and some will get their own depending on how much of an argument I feel is needed. So, let's get chronic. Prior to the college football playoffs and BCS national title game, we relied only on the polls to determine the college football national champion, with some formulas and short-lived systems in between attempting to better things. The polling system failed many times, with as many as 4 to 6 teams in contention that never even played each other. This often resulted in many split national championship years. Prior to 1965, some polls voted on their national champions before the bowl games were even played, and then saw their champion lose their final game. If you go back a little further, the first attempt to straighten things out came in 1936 with the creation of the AP poll, and was often the most respected poll for many years. But even then, the early media had their biases and favorites due to what they were familiar with. If all the writers and voters only saw Notre Dame or Yale, they would have no way to compare it to what was going on down south or out west, and usually just sided with what they knew. Prior to the AP, we had a wild, lawless 67 years of college football where many or no teams called themselves national champions, and a lot of those teams didn't even claim national titles in this era until more modern polls went back and retroactively named them national champions. Are you confused yet? You should be. While the AP poll is often the benchmark for a champion from 1936 to 1998, I would still argue that point. If the AP named you champion and nobody else did, that smells a bit fishy. Personally, I tend to side with what a majority of the polls say. So if the AP says you are the champ, but 11 others don't, I look deeper into the situation. And that's just me. You are free to do or think whatever you like.
Jerry, just remember, it's not a lie if you believe it.
And of course, I view any titles won through the playoffs or BCS title game as automatically 100% legit from the start of the video, even if you disagree with the selection committee. And yes, I have also disagreed with them plenty of times. On the flip side, any that claim a separate title outside of those official parameters I view as complete bullshit, whether the selection committee screwed said team or not. History is history, and I respect that fact even if I dislike that fact. For the purposes of this channel, I'm only going by what the school actually claims. I will do a series covering unclaimed titles later on. I have added a layer to my tiers and now broken them down into 5 sections. 100% legit, debatable but fair, I see your argument but no, complete bullshit, and introducing 1941 Alabama, which will be reserved for the most imaginary or dumb claims that exist. Ole Miss is the last of our teams claiming 3 titles if you are watching these in the order they were released. If you aren't from the South, it might surprise you just how big of a fan base the Rebels have. It might even surprise you to find out that they claim any national titles, let alone 3. But now, after the 2025 playoff run, you are probably more aware of both, as their fans took over the Sugar Bowl and Fiesta Bowl. And I mean no disrespect in that statement, some people just don't get out much and never go far from home. It would probably surprise people in my area how big the Iowa fan base is, for example. I came across a Facebook comment not long ago that said Ole Miss had no titles. And I had a nice little argument there, but that's no fun. Let's have that argument here. Grab your disco pants, everyone, because we're going back to the 1960s for this one. But wait, before we begin, I have just one question. Are you ready?
I said, are you ready? Hell yeah! Damn right! I'm Johnny, got somebody who the hell are we? Hey, flip, man, oh, miss my damn.
Let's get chronic. We will actually start this off a year earlier than the 60s with the 1959 Ole Miss team. The Rebels started out with high expectations with a number 8 ranking in Week 1 and had a promising 9-2 record in 1958. The team started out 6-0 with a key win over number 10 Arkansas 28-0 and actually shut out all 6 of those opponents. Now ranked number 3, the Rebs faced number 1 on Halloween night. Now, if you're familiar with SEC lore and legend, you'll know this was the famous game where LSU's Billy Cannon took a punt back 89 yards to seal the Tiger victory 7-3 and led to his Heisman Trophy win. The loss dropped Ole Miss only to number 5 as they took care of Chattanooga, number 9 Tennessee, and Mississippi State to set up a rematch with LSU in the Sugar Bowl. This time, the Rebels were ranked number 2 and the Tigers number 3 after LSU had lost to Tennessee the week after that Halloween game. Ole Miss left no doubt this time as they avenged the prior loss in a 21-0 thumping to finish 10-1 with a final ranking of number 2 in both the coaches and AP polls. In a different season, with multiple equally deserving teams, I'd give them a share of this one. Unfortunately, that's not the case for 1959. Syracuse went 11-0, beating 3 ranked teams and holding the number 1 ranking since mid-November, and were named consensus national champions. While Ole Miss had a handful of selectors name them retroactively, 1959 had a clear-cut national champion, and Ole Miss fell just short with their loss. This one, for me, is going to fall on the tier of, I see your argument, but no. Had they just gone undefeated, I could definitely get behind them claiming this one as a shared title, and likely more polls would have too. The following season, in 1960, the team had even higher expectations entering the season at number 2. The team again ran through the first 6 games undefeated, though they did not dominate as much this time, but remains number 2. Then came the LSU game again. But it was different. LSU was not number 1. No, in fact they were 1-4. The game ended in a 6-6 tie, and this may as well have been a loss for Mississippi as it dropped them to number 6. They again bounced back with no problems against Chattanooga, number 14 Tennessee, and Mississippi State, and entered the Sugar Bowl ranked number 2 against 7-3 unranked Rice. They ultimately beat the Owls in a close one, 14-6, to finish 10-0-1, ranked number 2 in the AP and number 3 in the coaches poll. They were named champions only by the FWAA. I think you see where this one is headed, but stay with me. Iowa, Minnesota, and Washington all claim this title as well, and since a true champion is messy this season, and since I have not yet gotten to Iowa or Minnesota yet in this series, I will instead just make a case on Ole Miss alone. Real quick for the record, and as a reminder, I called Washington debatable but fair in 1960. Please go back and watch that video for more context. A tie with an unrated team is worse than a loss to a top 10 team. Selecting Mississippi just because they have the best record is overly simplistic. The other 3 teams all took a loss to a top 10 opponent. Ole Miss suffered a tie to an unrated team, and at home no less, so I would say that the other 3 teams actually have the better records here. The Rebels are also the only one of these teams making a claim that did not defeat a team ranked in the top 10 and did not impress in the 2 top 25 games they did play. Also, the FWAA had been making some questionable picks in the surrounding years, and they are the only claim to fame backing you. Sorry, Rebels, but I've got the 1960 team as a good team, but this title claim is complete bullshit. The final claim is 1962, quite a successful run in a short time, regardless of legitimacy arguments. The team began at number 6 and this time took care of business, going undefeated through the regular season with a big win over number 4 LSU on the road 15-7 along the way. Again in the Sugar Bowl, the Rebels took on number 6 Arkansas, ranked number 3 themselves, and won it 17-13 to finish 10-0, ranked number 3 in the AP and coaches poll. They were named national champions by a handful of selectors and polls. USC also claims the title this season, and they should. The Trojans went 11-0 and were named consensus national champions. While USC beat 2 ranked teams in the regular season and Ole Miss only 1, through the transitive property, Ole Miss beat several teams that beat USC's ranked opponents. But now we're headed down a complicated path and splitting hairs. Despite USC holding the consensus crown, I have no problem with the Rebels claiming this one. But since the claim is disputing a consensus champion and didn't have the support of the AP or coaches poll, I don't feel right going all in on 100%. For those reasons, this will land on the debatable but fair tier. I would proudly fly this flag if I were an Ole Miss fan. And while they didn't claim it at the time, they finally mailed national championship rings for this season to the players 50 years later. I patiently waited to finish writing this one as they won a second-round playoff game in 2025 that I, nor a majority of you, expected them to win. And they had every chance to win the semifinal game against Miami too. As for adding another title to these 3 claims soon, and don't come at me too hard on this take, but I don't see it. I feel like they've had their run and best chance in the past few years under Lane Kiffin. Now that he's gone, I still have them being good, just not competing for a national title. LSU is going to rise back up, Texas A&M and Texas aren't going anywhere, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Georgia likely won't drop off much either. The Rebels, in my opinion, had themselves in the right place at the right time recently, and that's why that loss to Miami hurt so bad, and that's why the fans packed the playoff games on a level I haven't seen from them. This was a generational opportunity more than it was a shift in contenders. And hey, I may be completely wrong on that take, only time will tell. And there we go. If you feel I was unfair or missed a piece of info, go ahead and make your case in the comments. And remember, this is just one guy on YouTube who did some research and gave an opinion. I'm sure I won't change any fan base's opinion on the titles they choose to boast about, and certain fan bases have made that pretty clear thus far. This has been College Football Chronicles, and I hope you join me next time.